Is it safe to come up from the bunker, folks? This is what we need to know. If it's safe to come up from the bunker, all right, things look safe. Don't worry, folks. My mic is made out of space. We'll be back in just a moment. In the meantime, enjoy these near real-time images of the closest star here. It's the GOES 18 SUVI. And there's a coronal mass ejection happening as we stream the video. So gotta love that. Again, I'll be back in about a minute. Don't do anything I wouldn't do in the meantime. I guess that doesn't narrow it down. We're back to talk about whatever you want to talk about. And yeah, it's keep in mind, folks, these live streams are a regular thing at the moment. And little tidbit, our daily space weather videos are about to become a live thing also. So those are going to become YouTube live exclusives. At the moment, they're uploaded videos. So because of time constraints, and thanks for leaving comments, Smash Staff, Son of Clay, and Mike Bordages. Hope you're feeling better. Because of time constraints, because keep in mind, every morning when we make the daily space weather videos, we upload them and then we view them with our viewers. And happy Wednesday to you as well, Mr. Clayson. So, yeah, anyway, the daily space weather videos are going to switch to a live format soon, which means you'll be able to interact with me and affect the content as it gets made, but I won't be viewing the premieres with you because they'll be live streamed directly to YouTube. So just so you are aware of that, and I mean, barring some sort of issues with regular demonetization of the videos, which could entirely be a possibility, but short of something like that, we expect the videos to become YouTube live streams like they used to be a couple of years ago. I mean, the software used to all be built into the YouTube software. Anyway, so massive upgrades have happened in the meantime, and like we've got the 3-pane view and stuff. So we've got all these different views set up and so on. But so for the time being, probably sometime between now and summer, we'll actually be switched over to just live streaming daily space weather videos. So now, in the meantime, the Twitch stream does appear on the Smash Team page also. So if you visit smashomash.com/SmashTeam, as you see here, you'll see that feed existing in the same place. That's our Twitch stream. And of course, I have the see-through space mic. So, yeah. So, a little minor update there. The Wednesday live streams are planned to continue. And let's actually switch to a full screen view here from SDO 94 angstroms wavelength. That's pretty sweet. That is just today so far. And you can see some activity in all four corners there. So that's always exciting. And of course, we are interested in news stories. So if you've got certain news stories that you want to cover, I'm going to bring up a news source that I haven't showed before on the channel. So that might be of interest to you as well there. We're going to do a news crawl. In fact, we're going to start out with a recently discovered news source here. So you may or may not have heard of this one before. And we're not going to view it on Google Chrome because that is a browser that is not optimal for ads unless you put in aftermarket ad prevention software. So if you haven't seen this one out, check it out. It's ground.news. And I found out about this one because of, well, let's actually shrink that down. Where am I? There we go. All right, that's a little better. It's ground.news. Check that out. It'll even do like an analysis of if your news intake has bias to it. So, top news story here. Well, the biggest headline is Idaho Republican to hold up arms sale for Hungary for delaying Sweden's NATO entry. Okay. That's definitely outside of my realm of understanding. I absolutely refuse to comment on that. Sometimes you just have to know when you are too far out of your lane to have input. Biden administration reviews talks with Iran. Let's go back to that. That's better. But yeah, check it out if you haven't seen it before. Ground.news. Check it out. What? Saturn's moon Enceladus is habitable, confirms breakthrough study. Whoa. Seriously? What? Must be liquid water on Saturn. Aliens could be hiding on Saturn moon Enceladus. Well, that's an interesting story, wouldn't you say? Phosphates have been found on Saturn's moon Enceladus, so a product of biological life forms there. Some of the ocean spews up and out of the surface in the forms of vast plumes on Enceladus. So it's evident that there's not only phosphorus, but also concentrations at least 100 times higher than in the Earth's oceans. The presence of phosphorus compounds. Not sure if they probably analyzing chemical spectra there from plumes that are so big they made it into space. So anyway, that's an interesting story, wouldn't you say? And of course, all stories about extraterrestrials, any sort of extraterrestrial life is going to obviously get undue amounts of attention. All right, so let me cut back. I'm going to cut back to the... There's the GOES 18 SUVI once again, because there is a CME happening as we do the stream. And you've also got a huge filament up here and a filament down here. We're going to leave that there as our background here as I attempt to get through your comments and berate each and every one of you for being for having the traits that you have. I'm going to berate each of you for the traits that make you you. All right, so that's going to be fun. Give me a minute. All right, so yes, and happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. It's our standard Wednesday 3 p.m. Eastern Time stream. So if you've never seen it before and you want to interact with me directly on the channel in real time, sort of, there you go. There is your opportunity on the Wednesday live stream. By the way, my right foot currently is on the Fauci Face of Evil bath mat. If you haven't seen it before. All right, so now keep in mind, folks, we are only, well, let's see, geez, we're only 1 week. So this is the sunniest 2 weeks of the year, right? It's always sunny in the Northern Hemisphere, or it's the most sunny in the Northern Hemisphere, at least during these 2 weeks. So what it's like in Philadelphia, very similar to where I'm located, by the way, which is why I can tell you that Always Sunny in Philadelphia is a show that is uncomfortably legit. That's why it's so good. If you haven't seen it, check out the hilarious comedy written by legit Philadelphia native Rob McElhenney. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty berserk. Anyway, that is an unpaid plug. We do occasionally endorse things that we aren't paid for on the channel, as we aren't paid for much on the channel. So, yeah. All right. So what do we have here? If you've got news stories, if you're worried that you have recently found yourself living in a banana republic instead of a constitutional nation, let us know what you think in the comments. By the way, we've named the filament, this southern filament. Let's go to that in full screen awesomeness. This filament down here has been named the Cornell West filament. So we hope you think that's a good idea, but if not, it's too late because it's already been named. Shout out to our viewer who named it. Wild Alchemical Spirit or something. So yeah, there's one filament named, and I guess we named the right one because if it stays there much longer, it's going to be in the West. And this one that already was in the West is now one of those. It's on its way out. And you can see once again a little bit of hider flaring happening there as the filament releases. Some of the plasma splashes back down. Great view of that. You can see that brightening there. A little bit of additional X-ray output likely happening there from that post-filamentary ejection there, that hider flare happening. Which, by the way, the other day, if you noticed, I brought up a Wikipedia page about solar flares because it didn't include anything about hider flares. I was trying to remember what those things were called, and I couldn't. And then, as if by psychic powers, Eugene brought it up the next day. So that was brilliant. Shout out to Eugene for that one. And I believe if Eugene would have commented today, his comment would have been, "Are we all going to die?" And the answer is yes, probably. I would suspect so. It is more likely than not to be Spock about it. And by the way, don't say Dr. Spock. The character on the Star Trek show, Spock, is not a doctor. He does eventually become a captain, I think, right? All right, so anyway, that's what's going on with the sun, and let's get rid of this and plug the Smash News Network least busted name of news. Congratulations on realizing that it exists. It is all zero hackery or shilling happens on the channel. If you're worried that I want to call this gravitational lensing or something like that, I don't care what it's called. I just want valid physics to explain the phenomenon. See that right there? That's Cygnus A, the radio galaxy. Interesting thing about Cygnus A is that right there is the brightest thing in radio aside of the sun, and it's 500 million light years estimated distance to the galaxy Cygnus A. It has huge radio lobes. It's got the hugest radio lobes. It's just amazing. It's an amazing galaxy. It's the second brightest radio source in the sky, second only to the sun. The constellation Cygnus, it's highly underrated. Anyway, let's cut back to the sun here, and we're going to actually bring up... Let's bring up a composite here. Give that a minute to initialize. That is multiple wavelengths. And that is not our connection. That is the SDO site. If you're wondering if the sun is waggling back and forth like that, the answer is no. It has to do with the data. What the heck? Did I put up just today? All right. I should be off screen. Let me just bring up 304 angstroms, because there should be some great views of that filament discharge. Now keep in mind, you can download these images at a higher res. So there's some imagery of that filament. Probably not earthly directed. Maybe too early to tell. And like we said in this morning's daily space weather video, this filament down here in the Cornell West filament is looking highly unstable, especially the polar portion of it. So anyway, that wavelength 304 will be pretty good at showing solar flares. It's been a mild day for solar flares, so not a lot of flaring despite some rather complex sunspots. Yeah, you know, I was watching Nibiru. It's great that you say that. Thanks for bringing that up. We were actually watching Nibiru form earlier. I'll bet it shows up the best in 193 angstroms. Let's go take a look. I was watching Nibiru form earlier, and I would want to share that with all of you viewers. Yeah, Nibiru. It only mysteriously forms in limited wavelengths, made out of diffuse gas. But for whatever reason, check it out. There it is. Nibiru is forming right down here. You see that? Boom. Boom. Nibiru. There it is. It's forming. End of story. Case closed. Case closed. What could that be besides a planet forming there? I mean, it could be gas aligning to magnetic fields, but besides that, it's probably a planet forming. So quick, make sure you tell Gina Maria Colvin Hill and Mr. MBB333 and Ben Davidson all about it. They can see Nibiru or Elohim or whatever nonsense they're calling it today. Planet X, oh my God. And then there's another Planet X forming here, a competing Planet X. Man, you ought to see my Facebook feed. That's all I can say. You ought to see the posts that I see on my Facebook feed. I don't know the people very well who keep posting them, so I just keep seeing them and not really responding. But they are some kind of funny posts, you could say. Yeah, kind of funny. A little on the funny side. Let's just show 171 angstroms also because it's so good. Dag. So once again, you'll see Nibiru forming down here in the southeastern limb. Tell all your friends and foes that you saw it here first. Hey, what did you do tonight? Well, I saw Nibiru form. I saw Planet X form here, right on the Smash News Network least busted name in news. How convenient. I could just view it on a live stream right there on my YouTube feed, and poof, there's Nibiru. Down here, this is Planet X forming down here. You see that? It's Planet X. Does it show up in all wavelengths? Well, definitely not. I mean, if you look at it in some wavelengths, you won't see it there because it's only diffuse gas, but it's definitely Nibiru. Now this is carbon. The reason you don't see it here is because Nibiru is a carbon-free planet, so it's very green. I know this imagery is kind of a yellowish orange color, but Nibiru is a carbon-free planet, so you're welcome for that info. If you're looking to be carbon neutral or maybe even have a negative carbon footprint, Nibiru is obviously a good choice. We'll also show 211 angstroms here because, of course, Nibiru looks fantastic in 211. There you go. Ah, yes. Just another day on YouTube, looking at imaginary planets and creating sound bites that should enrage and astound lots of people. Yes. Can anybody tell us why we don't have any invisible planets floating around? Can anybody tell us why? I'm going to give just one reason why there are no invisible planets. So, because if you have planets floating around, they're big, which means even if they emit no light, they're still taking up a lot of space. So a thing that's big in space, it takes up a lot of the sky. And things that take up a lot of sky, guess what they do? They cause people using telescopes to notice obscuration. Yeah, obscuration. That object, that big object that's moving around, it gets in between other objects and the observer. And the observer goes, hey, there's a thing moving around. This is how people find asteroids, just using their backyard telescope. They find that objects were obscured from behind some other mysterious object, which some people are able to track. This is why you know that there is no kind of Nibiru floating around, because people would be very concerned. They would think it's a giant asteroid, and they would track it, and then you'd see it on the news. They'd be like, oh my God, look at Tom Brokaw told me that there's a freaking planet floating around, and it's pitch black. Oh my God, it's a pitch black planet of which I'm spooked. I am spooked by that pitch black planet. And look, it looks like, fortunately here, it looks like Nibiru maybe transforming into a dragon or something. Maybe that's for Pride Month. I don't know. Maybe it's the rainbow dragon. We could look at it in, what do you think? How about 335 angstroms? I'll bet it shows up in this wavelength too. There it is. Oh, that's a very good contrast there. So that's quite good contrast there of Nibiru forming. Nibiru, everybody. I should put a hashtag in the title of the video. We found Nibiru. There it is. The planet of doom. And just when I thought it was safe to come out of the bunker, now I'm showing everybody Nibiru on the channel. It's pretty. I'm going to show some contrails later. That'll have. We're gonna try to get as many people into bunkers as we possibly can. So, all right. Speaking of which, let's switch out to some legit bunker-based. Some bunker-ready news, get rid of ground news, and go to we're going to go to this monstrosity that is cbsnews.com instead. That should be fun. And what do we have? Oh, yeah. So the Fed decided to not raise interest rates. So because inflation looked like it was slowing down, so the Fed didn't raise interest rates. Now, many people were calling for not very many more interest rate raises, if any, because of things like paying the interest on really, really high amounts of debt, like debt in the trillions of dollars range. Because if you raise interest rates too high, then you'll have trouble not defaulting on your multi-trillion-dollar debt. That's a thing. And see, the Fed doesn't really want that to happen, because when the entity that backs up the sovereignty of the currency starts to lose credit, that's bad for the currency, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. And anyway, so we're going to head to, oh my gosh, no. We're not heading to CBS News on the Chrome browser. That is for sure. So we'll switch to and by the way, we're using Opera Gaming, which is quite fantastic. The Opera Gaming browser, Opera GX as it's called. Really enjoy that. It's got some great settings on it and so forth. Yeah, so the Fed decided to not raise interest rates, and that was a foregone conclusion for a lot of people. So again, it's also worried about the maintaining the price of the stock market. So the NASDAQ is heavily reliant on cheap money, so they can buy their own stock and pay people in stock options instead of in salaries. So it affects the taxes. There are all kinds of implications to this. I'm not going to get into the minutia of, why organizations who have overvalued stock have a huge interest in low interest rates. They have a high interest in low interest rates because they want to borrow money to buy their own stock. So imagine if you borrow money at a 2% interest, and then your stock goes up 15%, and then you sell it off. Now you've made a 13% on that, and you can, of course, let the difference ride. So this is part of the reason why you have ultra overvalued stocks in the NASDAQ, and I am uniquely qualified to understand this because I used to be a day trader in the late 90s and early 2000s. So, and I was a tech specialist. I didn't only trade tech stocks, but that was part of the portfolio, and I fared a lot better than the NASDAQ and the S&P and the Dow Jones during the NASDAQ bubble burst, because there were individual issues the whole time that were just fine. And anyway, I won't get into the minutia of that either. Moving right along, the Fed didn't raise interest rates, which means the market will like it. The market probably didn't like Microsloth. So I want to take a look at Microsloth before we move on, because I don't want to forget about this. Microsloth purchased Activision, which allowed it access to 3 pathetic franchises that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. And I don't know of any real gamers that like these franchises. Activision is the owner of, Microsloth is now the owner of Activision, which is being blocked in antitrust proceedings and so on. But Activision owns Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and Candy Crush. 3 garbage games that I would not play ever. I mean, maybe if I was salaried enough, I'd play them, but you got to pay me to play that crap, and it is crap. So yeah, Microsloth purchased Activision, and they're being blocked in some way. I don't know exactly what's going on, but let's do a quick. I want to see what their stock is actually up today, probably on the news from the Fed. So there you go. That's how important. That is how important the cheap money is. That's how important low interest rates are to tech stocks. I mean, I'm not going to look up what their price to earnings ratio is. Okay, we'll look up their price to earnings ratio. It's currently trading at 36 times earnings. So that's actually not very high. So, and I don't look at these technicals daily. There were plenty of companies back in the late 90s who were trading at 150 times earnings and so on. People were still buying them, like Yahoo at the peak of its insanity. So anyway, I suspect that's probably a bigger advantage, that lack of raise in interest rates that staying stable for interest rates is probably a bigger deal for Microsoft than the failures of the Activision purchase. Anyway, let's head back to where we were there. CBS. What happened? We'll head back to cbsnews.com briefly. A true abomination and the world's original fake news. Hopefully that's not playing audio. Is that playing audio? Speaking of audio, did you know that we use white noise on the videos on purpose? It's designed to make it sound like we're at warp speed. If you don't like the sound, we apologize, but I find it intoxicating and relaxing. All right, some stories about ISIS. And of course, I'm sure what everybody wants me to comment on is Trump getting arrested. I don't know anything about the specifics of the case. However, it looks a little problematic. I'll just say that. It looks like it might not be so legit. I know a lot of people are excited, but, you know, an important thing to understand is that there's a reason why the Teflon Don is called the Teflon Don. And that is because things slide off of them, you see. So, oh, yeah. So, yeah, Kimberly, what I realized is that it's a very relaxing sound, and I like it. So, I like to include it. Anyway, let's look up some weather stuff. We had some severe thunderstorms here in Pennsylvania, and I just wanted to take a brief look at the water vapor map, as there's a little low pressure system here blasting across Pennsylvania. It's pretty sweet. I figured I would show you this. Just had some pretty sweet little concentrated thunderstorms come through just before we did the stream. You got this great dragon-like low pressure system there, all surrounded by dry air, so it's kind of weak. There's not a lot of convective force involved. The ground in Pennsylvania has sucked up all of that water, so there was a lot of water there, and plants consumed it instantaneously and probably grew inches overnight because it was extreme drought, and now it's just mildly dry for Pennsylvania. So just a couple days of rain there made all the difference. And it's still kind of dry, but not extreme drought, which the whole entire state was in there for a while. And there were some pretty violent, not really violent, I mean just really concentrated thunderstorms that moved through. There's a good view of what happened. These systems right in here. But check it out, we have some beefier systems down here. So if you look at the full, it's a rare occasion that we get to actually show the visible satellite. And it's got great 1 kilometer resolution there. So some big stuff going on here in Louisiana and Mississippi. Let's do a medium zoom. Should give some great images here of clouds. Sort of a double supercell forming there. And I suspect you may see Reed Timmer. Yeah, Reed Timmer, Storm Chaser. He's, by the way, looking at plans that look like UFOs for the next, is it the Dominator 4? You know, they have a storm-chasing vehicle that's shaped like a wedge, so it doesn't get blown away if it does happen to be very close to a tornado. Some proper storms there. Some of these look like they've maxed out their cloud tops, so there could be some rotation happening in there for sure. That is, let's actually go to high zoom for that one. That was pretty sweet. We'll drop it down to like 20 images. Some legit cloud formations for you there. No, it's not chemtrails. No, it's not contrails. And no, it's not HARP. There is a huge pressure gradient. That's not the right thing. The water vapor map will totally show it. Now keep in mind when you use the water vapor map, it does not zoom as far in as the visible satellite does. So that is a lot of moisture becoming airborne rapidly. And part of the reason there is because you've got dry air aloft. So all of this dry air right here is all aiding. It's pulling water into the sky, basically. It's pulling water into the sky, give or take, along with heat and other processes, of course. So, but there you can see that double supercell forming. Two distinctly separate cloud units. The one sort of nested. Starting in Texas and Oklahoma. And it looks like it's going to be hitting in Mississippi and Alabama. Let's switch back to our regularly scheduled browser. We keep 3 browsers open just because it allows us to have 3 feeds if we want to, because I've got this view set up, which there's actually, many of you may have seen the YouTube live streams. There we go. So those are pretty serious thunderstorms there. It looks like Jackson is right in the crosshairs. Montgomery. Yeah, those are some serious cells there. That one just crossed Interstate 20. It's heading toward 85. Yowzers. Look at the high cloud tops there. Heavy lightning. Quite a lot of lightning there, all the way from Shreveport to Albany. Some active cells, to say the least, in those areas. Another place you can get data from, folks, is you can check out Windy. You can pick wind speed and just zoom right in. We're not trying to show Mexico. Some very, very high onshore winds there at Pascagoula. So Kimberly wants to know how the hot season is going up here in the Northern Hemisphere. After I briefly take a look here at surface winds, we will take a look at temperature. It's been on the cool side here in Pennsylvania for sure. As you move into the darkest 2 weeks of the year. I mean, Yeah, the darkest 2 weeks of the year and the brightest 2 weeks of the year as far as solar radiative inputs. It's been on the cool side here. I mean, the end of winter was super warm, and spring was kind of cool, which is, I mean, you don't want to have a super cold winter. That is not good. Let's switch the temperature. And what's it like what's it like down under? Let's take a look. It looks kind of cold. Yowzers. New Zealand looks cold too. So there are the surface winds, and it's got to be a weird place being in proximity to the Southern Ocean like that. I mean, Tasmania, super weird place. Man, pretty chilly there. Only 31 degrees in areas of Australia there near the coast. All right, so here's the real cold spots. How about negative 65? That's it. Negative 70? It's not that cold down there at the moment. And the hottest places, looks like they might be Mexico at the moment. 105.7 degrees down there in Mexico. I know the southern part of the country is seeing a drought also, not the northern part. India and Saudi Arabia are hot. Parts of Central Asia there are on the cold side. Of course, the Himalayas. I'm sure summer in the Himalayas must be pretty freaking sweet. Anyway, as far as the U.S. goes, there are the temperatures in the U.S. And let's take a look at sea surface temperature anomaly here. You got some wild variations that happen in the Great Lakes regularly. Lake Superior there, anomalously cold. Lake Ontario and Erie pretty much right on par. Huron and Michigan, anomalously warm. That is a bit of a rough image. Of course, Null School is very good at looking at global scale views there. So there is surface winds and sea surface temperature anomaly. Just checking out your comments. Kimberly states, at therapy sessions, helping people with their online activities also, often turns into therapy for one of us. Yes. And of course, personally, if I were doing tech support for their online activities, I would need therapy, psychiatric therapy. All right, so moving right along here, let's get back to more news stories. We're going to look at another fascinating news source here. Let's see what's going on over at how about Zero Hedge? That should be fun. Hopefully it won't be anything too abrasive. All right, what do you got? So, again, Fed pauses after 10 interest rate hikes. Now, let us know in the comments what you think about that. Interest rate hikes. Do you think the market should control interest rates? Or should a bunch of private banking interests artificially decide what the interest rate is just by fiat? What do you think? Do you think a market should decide interest rates? Or do you think they should just be decided on by a series of banking interests, the likes of which we don't even know who owns the Fed? Did you know that? When the Fed was originally formed, we knew who owned the Fed. The Fed was owned by the charter banks of the initial Federal Reserve banks, which were banks like MetLife Bank, Citibank, and various other financial entities at the time. I don't remember the list. However, through a series of mergers and acquisitions, we no longer know who owns the Fed. It is not known. It's not like I'm an idiot because I don't know. It's not known because unless those entities specifically divulged who owns them, it could be a combination of private and publicly traded companies. You just ultimately don't know. So, and of course, you're going to hear continued stuff about, oh no, the dollar's going to collapse, the dollar's going to collapse. Maybe it will one day, but not today, because where would you like to invest instead? There is no better place to invest. The other major fiat currencies are worse than the dollar. So, for everybody who's like, oh no, the dollar's going to end because a bunch of penny-ante countries are going to team up and shut the dollar down, I wish them luck. It's not going to shut Americans down. Americans will adapt too quickly. So, good luck with that. It's just not going to happen because people want to invest in secure places. And places with more inflated currencies tend to be less secure than ones with less inflated currencies. So, anyway. What's up with what J.P. Morgan disagrees with Kalanovic, says it's time to buy cyclicals. I would say anything that looks like a value at the moment might be a good purchase, but it comes down to individual companies like it always has. Keep in mind this is not investment advice, as I am not currently licensed to give you any. ChatGPT, a bunch of boring things. Gold slumps after interest rates do not get hiked. Pete Buttigieg warning of higher costs of things because of supply chain snarls. Oh, Pete. Pete, you should ride your bike to work for real, instead of making it look like you rode your bike to work. China boosts crude oil import quotas by 20% from last year. All right, that's interesting. Yellen warns de-dollarization efforts will grow. And of course, there are people trying to do it from inside and without the U.S. That's okay. By the way, good investments will always be good investments. If you invest in actual visionary leaders, they'll be steering you the right way instead of the wrong way. That's super important to understand. What else you got? The Trump prosecution by the numbers. Rising cost fears. Yeah, lots of rising costs when it comes to healthcare. Is that a surprise to you? It doesn't seem like it's very surprising. So, what else is there to talk about, folks? What about bunkers? Should we talk about bunkers? All right, let's talk about bunkers. Do you viewers think that it will be wise to eat people in the event of a large-scale disaster? I'm not saying we're likely to have a large-scale disaster. I'm saying if we have one, or I should say when we have one, right? When we have one, will cannibalism be a smart idea? Let us know what you think in the comments. Maybe that's too inflammatory. Let's put up some splentacular imagery here. We'll put up the U.S. visible radar. There we go. That's a good one. We'll put up the Go 16 SUVI. That's quality. And oh, check this out. How about a little slideshow here? We're going to show you this morning's videos as I rant about whatever I want. Microsoft Edge. There we go. So there's this morning's daily space weather kickoff video. Yeah, you know, a lot of people are worried that if there was a major disaster, you'd have all these dead people laying around. Why not eat them, right? What could possibly go wrong with a little bit of cannibalism? It seems like a perfectly fine idea, right? Not Soylent Green, not tricking people into eating people. Just people eating people because they thought it was a good idea. And to that, cheers. You know, some of the stuff you watch on YouTube might be a little bit distasteful. Like content about cannibalism. Seems a little gross. Okay. Some more of this morning's fantastic videos. Here you can see the Cornell West filament. Shout out to Cornell West. Seems like an interesting character for sure. Let us know in the comments if you'd like to have a beer with Cornell West. I remember when he was supporting Bernie Sanders. That I wasn't impressed by that, but seems like a heck of a guy. To Cornell West, folks. He's one of those guys that has fairly rational reasoning and probably doesn't even want you dead if you don't agree with him. It's amazing. I know, some people are crazy like that. Crazy, reckless folks who are willing to allow people to disagree with them without wanting them dead. Those are the good ones, folks. Those are the normal people who aren't psychos. Pardon me, I spilled some undisclosed liquids. All right. So yeah, this morning's space weather videos were spectacular. If you didn't see them, check out the playlists. You can find them below the video, right on the channel. After all, this is a YouTube Live exclusive. You should be able to find the other videos from the channel if you were lucky enough to see that this live stream exists. So I'm going to put up some more imagery here. Let's switch to, how about if we show the 24-hour video from this morning. There is 304 plus 171 over there. You've got the last 2.5 hours of 304. And then, oops, it's not animated. Hold on, let me get that. There we go. That should be good. Something got screwed up here. That looks like the stuff. Now we've got it. So I'm going to step away for a quick moment. I'll be right back. In the meantime, make sure you leave your comments if you've got news stories you'd like us to cover, etc. These Wednesday streams are designed for you, the viewer, to be able to interact with us, and of course to announce things like the fact that the daily space weather videos will be live soon. So be prepared for that. In the meantime, I don't even have to go back to the bunker. I just have to be off the mic for a minute. So be right back. By the way, before I forget to bring it up, thanks to our new subscribers. So we've got a bunch of new subscribers. Thanks to everybody who's recently discovered the channel, tuned in, etc. Thanks for realizing the channel exists. You may have noticed recent posts where we noted that our monthly views have increased by 90,000 views a month. So that's pretty good. Thanks to everybody who's realized that and tuned into the channel. We'll continue with the slideshow up here. Check that one out. That's pretty sweet. And we've got shorts of many of these clips. So if you haven't seen those, check out the shorts playlist. It's youtube.com/smashomash/shorts. Why did it go dark? I don't know what mutton bird is, but if I did, I would definitely let you know. For some reason, all of my applets are not staying animated as per my strict instructions. What's up with that? Well, let's just switch to that then. I'm liking this view. What do you think? Ah, yes. At the Smash News Network least busted name of news, you never know what you're going to see. I mean, we even saw the eruption of Hunga Pai on the morning space weather video. We weren't expecting that, but it happened anyway, which is why you got to be ready for anything. I mean, we've got some great stories about online shenanigans indeed. And, it's not like I'm new to the game. I've been doing online shenanigans for a long time. I was a server admin and game server, message board, clan leader, admin, scrim leader, and so on gaming servers a long, long time ago, before Facebook was even a thing, before MySpace was even a thing. Some of us were pew, 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 pew. In fact, the name of the channel, Smash-O-Mash, actually came from 1999 from a game called Special Ops 2 Green Berets. That was the first online FPS that I ever played, and that's where the name came from. That led to lots of people knowing who it is in all kinds of different countries. So you may notice all kinds of traits where I do all kinds of Euro-ish things. If you see that I'm doing all kinds of Euro-ish things, it's because I know a lot of Euros. Also, people from South Africa, Cyprus, Japan, all around the world. So it's makes me better at pronouncing volcanoes, knowing how to say people's names. So yeah, I mean, mutton, I know what mutton is. I don't know what a mutton bird is. Mutton is an adult lamb that you would use for food. So, you know, if you order mutton, it means a full-grown lamb meat, like a gyro, right? Most gyros are made of lamb. If it was a full-grown lamb, it would be mutton. Common at Indian restaurants, I think, right? Doesn't taste gamey to me, but I always get it with, you know, really hot vindaloo or something where it's, well, I prefer it to be unspeakably hot. That's my thing. I don't know about you folks. I know Kimberly doesn't like nightshade things. She doesn't like peppers. However, for me, I prefer to consume dinner while in shock. So I like my food to be so hot that it causes me to have a religious experience with a deity. We buy cayenne pepper in 5-pound bags, if that gives you any idea. And I've actually been slacking lately, so I've been recently adding it to my morning cocoa. So yeah, for a while there I was off the morning cocoa, but now I do a special concentrated. I'll have to do a video about it. And by the way, if you want deals on cocoa, get the organic stuff in bulk from the Amazon store. You can find links on smashomash.com. You'll find links to save massive dough. Buy Anthony's Cocoa, amazon.com/shop/smashomash, and you're there. Our idea lists contain kitchen gadgets and spices and even spaceware. So if you want a radiation reflecting hat, which looks nothing like this one, check it out. You can buy these glasses too. For real. They're like $15. All right, so what else do we have as far as news stories? Let's take a look at a news site that's a little bit more appropriate for the channel, that covers stuff that we talk about a little more often. We'll go to SciTechDaily.com, who has just published a news story, apparently, because I didn't see this graphic before. An artist's rendition of... Is that one of your hemorrhoids depicted in that image? I hope that is not one of your hemorrhoids depicted in that image. Nope, it's a supernova, as I suspected. So, what do we have here? A rare cosmic magnifying glass. Okay. You caught my interest, SciTech Daily. Perhaps a distant supernova made visible through a gravitational lensing? That should make somebody mad. Through some kind of lensing? Yep. A gravitationally lensed supernova. So you're going to see certain spectra, and then you're going to see it lensed. That's a pretty good one. A gravitationally lensed supernova. So it's a supernova where the light from it is going through some region of space, where something is causing the light to be exceedingly out of a straight line. The idea is that space-time is so warped that the photons are taking a straight line, and of course, space-time itself is warped. So, if that defiles theories about everything being electric or something like that, sorry, but these are facts, as I'm sure we're seeing very specific spectra here coming from two different places, indicating that it's a supernova. Supernova's wiki is not only magnified by the gravitational lens, but also belongs to a class of supernovae that we call, quote, standard candles, which are type 1a supernovas, I think, because we can use their well-known luminosities to determine distance in space. When a light source is farther away, the light is dimmer, just like seeing candles in a room. We compare the two light sources in this way and gain an independent measure of the distance without having to actually measure the galaxy itself. So this is actually one of the concepts that kept me out of astronomy in college, but nonetheless, it is interesting to see a supernova through the prism of whatever's causing the lens, whether you think it's gravity or whether you think it's magic. Let's show a brief clip without audio. So here's a little, like a diagram of what goes on with the light. It takes a weird path. You end up with 4 images of that quasar instead of only 1 because of that extremely high mass source in between the quasar and the observer. So I have to cut that off because it is so time to end this stream. But if there's anything else you'd like me to bring up, I mean, now keep in mind, folks, I covered that with zero warm up. I had no idea the article was going to be there. I just went to SciTechDaily.com and I knew enough about astronomy and cosmology to know what this was. So anyway, the point is, folks, I've been doing this since 1979. I learned to read at the age of 3 because I didn't want to go to school. I don't know if it was because I realized that school was stupid, or if it was just because of watching too much TV where people said school was stupid. But for some reason, I didn't want to go to school when I was 3 years old, so I learned to read. And then when I was 4 and getting signed up for kindergarten, I was like, what is this? What is this? What are we doing here? Oh, we're just signing you up for kindergarten. Oh, you're just signing me up for kindergarten, are you? Why is that? I already learned to read. This means I can learn anything I need to learn on my own without having to go to school. I can already read. Cheers. And she said, no, you don't understand. If you don't go to school, I'll get thrown in jail. And that was when I said, the heck with you, stupid rules. Yeah, Kimberly, to continue that story, actually, when I got to school, I was super excited because I realized the potential of having 30 kids all in the same room. So, I wasn't really too concerned until 12 years later, 13 years later. I didn't want to go to school, but when I got to school, I was stoked because there was a lot of like killer kickball games and things to be played. So it was well worth it. There are lots of people that I still talk to this day that were in my kindergarten class. I kid you not. Cheers to all the people who I still talk to who are in my kindergarten class. Hopefully you're faring better than me because my hand is all full of dark matter, as you can see. You see that? That's why you can see space through my hand. It's all full of dark matter. Like something made on a Cylon ship in Battlestar Galactica, my hand is all full of dark matter. I'm terribly sorry for that, folks. It may cause me to emit various different types of electromagnetic fields, particle radiation, gamma rays, petatrons. I don't know. If we're hanging out and your electronics mysteriously get destroyed, I swear I didn't do it on purpose. Anyway, cheers to all those people who I still talk to, who I went to kindergarten with. That's quite an accomplishment. Like 42 years later, we're approaching our high school 30th anniversary, by the way. And I don't think we've ever had a proper reunion. I know there's been a couple little gatherings, but there are rumblings on Facebook. Yes, rumblings. I suspect some of the people in my high school will want to buy a shirt, but they may not know about it because, algorithms or something. I don't know. How's your engagement doing on social media? You want to know why smartphones work so badly? The reason smartphones are so inefficient is because an analysis of their performance is based on engagement, which means if you spend more time typing a thing, that device is better than if you spend less time typing a thing. So think about this. Computers are for productivity. They're for you to be able to process information more quickly. When you measure a computer program's performance through engagement, It's completely opposite of how it's supposed to be. What you're doing is you're measuring how badly it works. And the worse it works, the better it rates as a successful program. Because people that sell these things, they think that engagement is super important. But they don't consider productivity, which is completely berserk, and it is why your device barely functions. So yeah, that is why. It's because engagement. So all of the programs that waste the most of people's time, and I mean at this point it's so bad that the OS itself barely functions, but the apps are just completely out in left field of non-functionality. So, but that's what it boils down to. If it takes you 15 tries to type a comment that says, "My device works perfectly," that's an indication that your device does not work perfectly. But the company that's measuring your device's performance thinks it's great. If it takes you 15 tries to type one sentence, that's considered a better performing device than one that only takes one try and takes 6 seconds to type a sentence. Have you ever noticed how voice-to-text software barely functions on smartphones? This is because it has to talk to the internet, number one, and number two, because it doesn't create a local voice recognition dictionary. Now, this kind of software was already perfected in the late 90s. Again, I was a tech specialist. If you remember Dragon software, I had a copy of it. I could run my whole PC flawlessly. It would type perfectly, and I could even run my PC and never have to touch the mouse or keyboard with the Dragon You Talk It Types software. If you notice, there's no aftermarket software that is voice to text, and there's a reason for that. It's because it's a monopoly. So anyway, just figured I would share a little bit about how and why your favorite devices barely function. As when I first graduated high school and went to college, I indeed was a computer science / math major. So like, I mean, we've got merch that says "do the math," and I'm not trying to like outball somebody and be like, "I know how to do differential equations quicker than you do," or anything like that. But the point is, I was writing code when I was like 5 years old also. So I know how to debug software, and I know how to recreate bugs. And, you know, there's a difference between bugs and stuff that is designed into the program on purpose. So when an error happens, and it seems like it was an error, but it was actually a bug built into the software to look like it was a bug when it's actually part of the design of the software, that is some of the worst crap that you could ever possibly build, and people have built it, lots of it. I won't say who owns it, but you could probably have a guess. Anyway, and thanks for leaving comments, Kimberly, and turn off your Wi-Fi at night. Yes. So we got to close this thing out, and but if you viewed in syndication, leave us a comment. Make sure you view the daily space weather videos if you haven't seen those. They are spectacular. You know, we're awaiting solar maximum, so we're expecting to see activity that is of this scale or higher activity over the next about year, and then another year of activity up to this level. So it'll be interesting stuff indeed. And you should find some great links below the video in the description on the homepage at smashomash.com. And let's close this thing down, because it'll never be now again, and we've got kraut dogs to make. So hit us up on Instagram. You may see some imagery of the kraut dogs, and hopefully you have clout dogs, and hopefully you'll check out the kraut dogs. So see you soon. Thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. It's back there. It's melting my face. Oh my God, no. It takes a lot of resources to have a to have your face melted by the Smash News Network least busted name in news. So, anyway, I am out. And see you next time. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. I guess that doesn't narrow it down.